Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of The Handmaid's Tale Season 5, Episode 6, Together. This was written by Catherine Collins and again directed by Eva Vives. I'm going to break my review into three parts. We'll start with everything with June, then go to everything with Lydia, and finish off with Serena. So, with June's storyline, I am a little frustrated with how it began this episode. I'm annoyed because last episode ended with this dramatic cliffhanger of Luke and June getting separated, and now guess what? They're back together in this van, so doesn't make much sense. It's annoying. It's just a trick by the cliffhanger last episode and doesn't keep up that momentum. It just flips the script on us, kind of like a gotcha, which I never like. So that was frustrating. So it's interesting that June doesn't think this is Gilead at some points because she's like, the smell is different. There's disinfectant. They're too healthy to use all these chemicals. And it makes you wonder, us knowing that Mr. Wheeler was the one, this is his team who got June, that there is another entity that Mr. Wheeler is a part of. I am curious to see like the whole story behind that. But what this episode does is it takes characters and has them live through things June went through, whether it's Serena living a handmade simulation in this episode or Luke living a simulation of what June's been through as being captured. And you see Luke is just constantly frantic here. He's panicking, and June's like, just chill out. You're driving me nuts. And then he reflects on things like not being the type of guy who would have came to save June. He regrets that. And then June feels bad that Luke even came along here, and he's like, no, it was my choice. And June gives this hopeful speech like, you know, when we were apart before, I never lost hope we would be together again. And she's saying that's just gonna happen again no matter what. And then Luke and June get separated again. I'm guessing this time for real. But I talk quickly about the June stuff because honestly, at this point in the show, the June story is actually the weakest to me and what I'm least interested in at this point. It just feels repetitive and drawn out, and I just don't care about characters like Luke. It's a lot of Luke screen time this year. They've made his character better for sure. I won't deny that. But I'm not staying up late on Wednesday to watch a show with a character of Luke starring. It's just not the most interesting character. I want to say something too, which is interesting. If you actually look at the IMDb of the writers of this season, you see that a lot of them are new to the show. And usually The Handmaid's Tale would cycle through the same writers in other seasons that would get their episode each season. But this season, there's a lot of new names. I have a feeling that that writing team is getting prepared and focusing more of their energy onto the Testaments, and that might be a reason why this season is suffering a bit. That Handmaid's Tale is kind of on its way out, and the shiny, bright thing is the Testaments, because again, it's based off a book Margaret Atwood recently wrote, and it's a new, fresh story, so that could be what's happening here with the drop of quality this season. That's all speculation on my part, so take it with a grain of salt, but that could be explaining why there's just a different feel to this season. But what I did really like about this episode was everything going on with Lydia, and Lydia finds out Esther is 3 weeks pregnant, and we find that out as the audience as well, and Esther tells Lydia that Putnam raped her. And this is where Lydia, slowly but surely, is finally waking up and smelling the coffee here and electing to face what's really going on. And she says that she is sorry. That is what happened to Esther. And Esther's like, no, you're not. They all do it, and you know they do. And this is where Esther just freaks out, and it lets McKenna Grace just be a force per usual. She is an incredible actress. But you see, what's important is Lydia tells Lawrence all of this, what happened to Esther, which is a huge step for Lydia. But you see Lawrence is like, well, where's the crime? He got her pregnant a day before she was posted. But you see how Lydia is still true to the character of Lydia, because she's seeing it in Lydia terms, where she's like, the ceremony is sacred. It is blessed by God. So she's not fully there yet, but she's seeing it in the way of her belief system, that if it's Gilead that she believes in, she wants the Gilead that's not hypocrisy and doing all this messed up stuff on the side, even though Gilead itself and what it does, like the ceremony, is messed up. So it's baby steps for Lydia. And she's like, you mock God's name and defend a rapist? And Lawrence is like, careful. But then he says, you give me a lot to think about, which is like a wink wink situation. So you saw there that they had that communication subtly that he was going to do something about this. And this is a big moment because Lydia is the one who pushed it towards Lawrence, and that Lawrence would make the right choice in the end. But my problem comes where Lawrence says this line, where's the crime? Got her pregnant a day before she was posted. I start to think in my head with this whole episode how unbelievable some of this is, especially the death of Putnam, that this whole council is making this big of a deal of it. I think it's a stretch big time, especially in Gilead and all the stuff we know they do with Jezebel's. And that Commander Lawrence and Nick all of a sudden can just get away with shooting him in a public place like they do at this brunch in front of Mrs. Putnam and not having consequences and just getting this be okay. Like, there's a whole other council of men who are with Putnam on his side of things, and they've just disappeared, or I guess they're fine with this. So that's the stuff that just makes me scratch my head and feel like a lot of that isn't earned. Like, when did Gilead really care of rape of unassigned property? That's what Gilead is. So for everyone to be on that same page, I guess we're supposed to believe Gilead's council that is like Lydia, where, oh, well, it's a day before. Technically, it wasn't his handmaid. Come on. I feel like a lot of stuff with Nick in this show happened last season with Fred too, where like when he comes on the screen, he does this like cool guy thing and saves the day. It's like very try hard, crowd pleasing moment for me. I just don't feel it or feel like it's just earned at all. And speaking of Nick, though, we see he talks to his wife Rose. She says he's worried what kind of person this makes Nick by doing this, and he says, makes me the kind of person who'll do whatever it takes to make Gilead a safer place for our child. So there's another twist that Rose is pregnant, and she's like, are you sure that's who you did this for? Now that could be obviously alluding to June, Hannah, Nicole, everyone else that Nick is attached to. Now, Lydia shows the handmaids consequences for people violating. She says, you holy vessels, talking about the handmaids, and they get to watch Putnam being hanged. And she's like, by his word, speaking of God, you will be protected. Again, more of a turn for Lydia here. This is huge for Janine to see, but it's also huge for Janine to see because Putnam was her former commander. And I love Lydia lines like her saying, okay, home now for warm milk. I always laugh at that. But those moments with Lydia, those moments with Janine, those moments with Esther are my favorite parts of this show the past 2 seasons. That continues on here. But those moments with Lawrence, Putnam, Nick, I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. Again, it kind of continues on with stuff that just feels just forced in here, and it's losing believability a lot of this show for me, and credibility. So with Serena, like I said, she gets the full handmaid simulation this episode. She's literally living what June had to go through under her, and Mrs. Wheeler is basically, she's seeing a direct reflection of her former self. And you see the costume choice is very clear here, where the first shot we even see Serena, she has a shorter dress on. It shows to me she's already breaking out of this strict Gilead way, which you've already seen somewhat in this season, but it's really showing you that visually now, not having the proper full dress. And you see Dr. Landers shows up, who is not Tony Hale, and he is here to give her an ultrasound exam at home, and they have this baby suite for her she didn't even know about. So like people predicted, the Wheelers clearly want this baby from Serena, don't want her going anywhere, keeping her locked in this house. And then he even asked her to dinner, and like she says, which is just a funny line, like, I don't want to date my gynecologist. And she's even telling Miss Wheeler, I might not get married at all. We're not an actual Gilead, she even says. So she just so hypocritical, Serena, always, and breaking her own rules. But that's where Miss Wheeler was like, not about that. She's like, you can't be a single mother. That's not happening. Your baby needs a mother and a father, and that's more important than your feelings. So really sounding like old Serena here and how she talked to June, and Serena's just seeing that. And she even says, go to your room to Serena, and Serena starts crying. So a lot of people have begged for Serena to be a handmaid. So this is, I think, the best they're going to get at that. Not fully her in the handmaid outfit and being a handmaid, but experiencing the handmaid life for sure. But Mr. Wheeler is the one who informs Serena that June has been captured by his people, and he's like, now you can just focus on your baby, not worry about Luke and June. And this is where Serena convinces him to let her go with Ezra to No Man's Land to take care of June. And she tells Mr. Wheeler she wants to be able to tell her son what happened to her father's killer. But a lot of this is this part where Serena's already torn here about what she was actually going to do, and that she was saying this mostly to convince Mr. Wheeler to let her go. Now, the big final scene happens here where Serena is facing June, and Serena's wearing a red coat. So again, showing you that turn, having gone through the handmaid simulation this episode, but also understanding of June more, and there's no wife colors here. And she tells June to pray with pointing a gun at her, and June says, I pray for our children, that my daughters live a life of peace, a life without all this hate and violence. Give them a life, give them a happy life, and dear God, may they do better than we did. And Serena softly says, amen, and then shoots Ezra. That's the big twist here. He's obviously wearing a bulletproof vest though, so doesn't actually kill Ezra. And she has June drive her off. So I had a little technical difficulties at this point in the video where my phone died when I was filming this originally. So when I was editing this, I just realized that I had lost the last couple minutes on my commentary. So I'm going to continue with audio only here. throw a picture or two up for you. But anywho's, the other thing about this scene, Serena seems like it's about to go into labor. So what we have to understand is that in this decision she's making, where she was already on the fence about somehow getting out of the situation she's in, that even though she's facing someone, just history here between the two of them and not liking June, she's about to have a baby. So she's kind of rolling odds here on, am I really going to go back with these crazy people that are going to take my baby, or have to just suck it up and have June get me to a hospital? So that's the thing you have to just pay attention to here in this scene. So it really ends the episode on that and her driving off. But honestly, I'm not crazy about the direction this is going, and that I don't think this is satisfactory for this arc with Serena and June and their relationship through this show, because it feels like a constant back and forth where it's like this whole beginning of the season they're setting up this war and showdown between Serena and June, and then to have it just so quickly now flip back to where we have to watch them clearly have to work together again, which they've done this before, where she had like a mini redemption arc with the Washington story and then flip back. I don't know. I feel like this is just not something the fans really want to see. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels just weird that the season was set up in a way to have this final showdown between Serena and June, and then you're getting justice to Serena with her having the Handmaid simulation, but now they're clearly flipping it again, and there's going to be some kind of Serena and June bonding here. And I think that it's tough because you're already asking us for the Lydia redemption, which is hard because you look back at the stuff Lydia did. It's a big ask. So then if we're doing this Serena thing again, even though she's already had a chance at redemption, and then we're doing it again, I don't know. And it's like, that's the trickery of it, that the happenstance that she happens to be going into labor, most likely at this moment, is what can trigger that to happen. Also feels just very coincidental. Like, the show is becoming like other TV shows that I have less respect for, where everything's just these like huge coincidences happening. It's losing its believability. So honestly, I do feel like this was my least favorite of the season and maybe of the show in a long time. And I hate to say that, but I'm just worried in the direction this is going now. Like, I'm like, oh no. And like, what could we possibly see next episode with this? So I'm actually giving this one a 7.8. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. And again, I think there's good parts to this, but I just don't think this is the satisfactory route to take here again, because we've already tried the redemption arc with Serena, and to have it go that she didn't have a redemption and then come back to it again, it's like, it's just this song and dance with these two at this point, and I don't think it's the best epic conclusion they can do. But let me know. I love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond to many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of The Handmaid's Tale, and it really helps if you subscribe. You have no idea. If you can become a member too, that gets you exclusive live streams, that's a donation, or you can just tip me. That helps me too, but you don't have to. I just appreciate anything. I like anything. I really do. I just appreciate you guys listening and getting this far in the video. So God bless, praise be, and I'll see you next time.